Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Comic Anthologist. And if you haven't hit the like button already, please do so. And if you haven't subscribed,
Hit that subscribe button.
yes. Now, today we are going to talk about the Batman. Now, the Batman came out last year. Of course, it was with Robert Pattison. And basically, it was a different take on The Dark Knight.
Right.
But a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in Robert Pattison at the time when the film came out.
Well, see, the problem was with that is that everybody associated him with the
Twilight
series.
Yes.
And so all they could think of was him being the emotional vampire from the Twilight series, but they didn't want to see him beyond that. But,
Right.
But he proved his worth with the movie and everything. So, and there were some parts of the movie that I enjoyed, but I guess I got so used to seeing the other Batman throughout the other series, like with Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, yes.
And so he operated like more of a ninja, where you see him one day, or not one day, you see him one moment, and then the next time when somebody turns their back, turn around, he's gone. And so the whole thing is, that's what I liked about that. But in this movie, he didn't do that so much. He was just like a force of nature.
Right, and he was more like the Batman from year one.
Right,
And he was just learning how to be the detective, the world's greatest detective at the time, because he was able to figure out how things were going on, especially with the issues with the Penguin, and then not only that, the Riddler.
Also, too, I wanted to add, too, they made the Riddler like a serial killer, like...
Yeah, that's the one thing I couldn't understand, because I remember back in the day when we were watching Batman, you know, the Adam West version, the Riddler was more...
a giggler, but then you got to see, Jim Carrey was like a giggler type deal in...
and he was just emulating
Batman Forever.
Yeah, he was basically emulating Frank Gorshin.
Yeah.
Let's just be real about that.
Right, exactly. But see, my whole point is that turning him to a serial killer, I thought that was an interesting and different take, and I like that. But then also too, getting back to Robert Pattison playing the Batman, what sold me was, there was two scenes that sold me with that film.
What was that?
Where he, when that gang was harassing that guy that got off that Metro Rail type deal, and everyone saw the signal in the sky, but the gangs that were harassing him, they were like, it could care less until the Batman himself showed up, and he didn't use any kind of ninja tactics or anything.
No, you just heard
He
him
just heard him walk in and just boom, and then when that first guy just jumped up,
he beat the stew out of him.
Yeah, he beat him senseless. I was like, okay. And then the second thing that sold me on that in the film, the Batmobile chase when he's chasing the Penguin.
That was one of my favorite scenes too.
Because especially when that engines roared up and everything.
Man, I said, to me, that was like the quintessential, that was a new version of the Batmobile. But then again, that's year one version of the Batmobile. Of course, it's going to evolve.
Of course.
But the roar of that engine, him chasing the Penguin through the streets, and the Penguin said, yeah, I got away. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Like, no. Just let it go, bro. Just let it go.
Exactly. But my other scene that I thought was my favorite in the Batman was the one towards the end where he had to take on all those Riddler wannabes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he basically, they had launched all the bombs around. And this is a spoiler alert, so any of you that have not seen the film, please do so. But getting back to the point, it's that ending point where he has to fight all those army of Riddlers, but you don't know who the real one is.
The real one is, and the whole thing about that, I liked about that is, it made it a mystery.
Right.
And so you don't know who the real one was, you don't know what he did, or you had an idea what he was about to do, but you didn't know which was which. That's what I liked about that.
Right.
Yeah. So
and not only that,
talking about Paul Dano that played the Riddler.
Right. And with him playing the Riddler, it gave so much more of a creepy performance.
A creepy gravitas.
Yes, very, very creepy. And he was so hell-bent on having his revenge over being wronged in a system. And that in itself corrupted him to the point where he wanted to just be just that person to try to call himself the Avenger in terms of avenging himself, basically, because he considered himself much smarter than everybody else around him.
Right, exactly.
And after him doing so, didn't realize he's just a flawed person, just trying
dealing with a flawed system.
and not only a flawed system, but he was dealing with all that childhood trauma, and it just came to the forefront. It became such a crazy thing that everybody else had to suffer as a result of his trauma.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm suffering, everybody else has to suffer too.
Yeah, and bringing out all the dirty laundry of the politicians of Gotham.
Gee, doesn't that mirror real life?
Yeah, it does.
But we're not going to get into politics.
No, we won't.
But
get
it does
into
mirror real life and everything. So I was like, yeah, okay.
I just had to basically say it like this. I like the direction it went in. I like the direction where they had a different kind of Catwoman, but it was based on the storyline of Batman Year One and The Long Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that too, this particular Batman going forward, that's going to be its own separate entity or its own separate multiverse type in the films.
Yes.
Because that's what the director and Warner Brothers decided upon. So it's not going to cross over with any of the DC James Gunn era films going forward. They're not going to cross it over because they want to keep it within it contained its own self.
I think that's a smart move for them to do it that way.
I think so too.
Because without having to interpollinate or cross over with other characters or whatnot, they could stick and focus on the
story itself and the Batman mythos just in that of itself, because you already know James Gunn is coming out with his own version of Batman with Batman and the Outsiders too. So
right,
and it's going to be a different one from that, and we're not going to get into that because they're still basically putting things together for that particular version of James Gunn's version of the multiverse with the DC movie. So
right, and not only that too, we still have to worry about the strikes and things that's going on right now.
Yeah, and they haven't gotten anything straightened up yet. So we'll see.
In the meantime, what do you think about the shakeup at Warner Brothers in terms of creativity? Because
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I agree. So many cooks in the kitchen when it comes
not one focus, and it's like too many cooks in the kitchen and not one focused singular vision. Kind of like, I'm not trying to like dote on Marvel, but they had everything focused, and even though they had everything focused all the way up to Endgame, and then Phase 4
kind of
has been kind of like hit and miss.
Well, yeah, because it stumbled on some of the stories. I mean, Hawkeye was good, She-Hulk was okay.
Hawkeye was good, She-Hulk was, but I love the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we got to get back to the Batman.
Yeah. So, but again, with too many cooks in the kitchen, it turned into a big holy mess because Zack Snyder had a singular vision of how it was supposed to go on. And Man of Steel did it right. And then it did Batman versus Superman, did it right. The extended version, that is.
The Ultimate version, you mean?
Yeah, the Ultimate version. And then Aquaman did it right. And then Wonder Woman, the first one, did it right.
Yeah.
And then they started stumbling because, again, too many cooks in the kitchen trying to figure out, no, we got to go this way. No, we got to go that way.
Or I want my own vision for this, or I want my own vision for that. And it's like, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen like that.
Right, because the thing
it'll mess up. It's basically, having too many cooks in the kitchen will mess up the recipe. I was going to say another word, a colorful word, but I'm like,
no. Since this is for kids,
this is a kid-friendly channel.
Exactly. But again,
too many cooks in the kitchen could ruin the recipe.
Not only that, not only ruin the recipe, but you got too many people have the visions of, I want it to go this way, I want it to go that way, and the Zack Snyder verse just started
fragmented,
going every which way to the point where they're like, okay. And now with the recent events of Blue Beetle tanking at the box office, The Flash tanking at the box office, Wonder Woman 1984 tanking at the box, didn't do as well as the original one. And story-wise, it just didn't grab people. And I think people are getting...
and right now, too, setting in, too, with a lot of these things, these films, superhero fatigue is setting in, too.
Of course it is.
Not setting in, it's set in already.
Right.
And so...
Because you see a lot of the ads out there, and people talk about, we don't need another comic book film. We don't need that. But bottom line is, if the stories were decent enough and told in such a way that would grab people's attention,
in a concise, focused pattern,
of course,
even though we still have the fatigue, some people will still come out and see it because
exactly.
it's focused. But when it's not focused, people they get tired of it after a while.
Right.
So,
any case,
but that's my take on the Warner Brothers madness, and then the take on the Batman. I enjoyed the Batman, and I like that it's going to be its own separate multiverse type film in that of it itself, so that way there won't be a catastrophic continuity mess.
Yeah, because they did that with the Joker as well.
Yeah, Joker was a singular film too,
exactly.
And that was very, very, very enjoyable.
So now that's turning, basically they're releasing a sequel to that, but we won't get into that. I know that's Batman related, but It's basically singular, away from the main DCEU, which was originally around. Now it's called the DCU, of James Gunn going forward. But that will be another story and
For
another time. In any case, if you haven't done so already, thank you for tuning in. But please hit that like button, and if you haven't, hit the subscribe button. And until then, see you on the next go round.